They called it the blood marriage, an ancient rite erased from every parish record. Once every generation, a bride is chosen. Once every time she dies before dawn. No screams, no fight, just silence and red linens. No one stops it, because if the bride isn't given, the village is taken. All right, shall we start now? Part 1. The bells that ring without joy, they rang the bells at dusk, but not the bright skippy notes of joy. No, these bells tolled heavy thick as iron and slow as breath through soil. They echoed across the valley like a warning, not a celebration. And yet, everyone came, from every crooked cottage, every frostbitten farmstead. The whole village gathered as if summoned not to a wedding, but a ritual. At the chapel's entrance stood the groom, pale, rigid, dressed in ceremonial black trimmed with crimson thread. Her mother had stitched the dress from old linens, dyed bone white with chalk ash. It didn't fit quite right. She looked like a girl playing pretend, until the priest placed the veil over her face. Then she was someone else entirely. His name was Ulrich Manta, man of noble blood, raised far from these hills, yet bound by some old debt. His eyes were glassy, unreadable. There was no feast, no song, no toasts from cousins. Her name was Dahlia, the last midwife still alive from the generation before. She counted each wedding in her head, 16 graves, and still no one stops the bells. Just the ceremony, quick and mechanical, spoken in a Latin too ancient for even the priest to understand. And beside him stood the bride, Ilse Venn, 17. Choir was humming when she walked the goat paths. No one smiled, no child tossed flowers. At the final vow, Ulrich pricked his thumb and let the blood drop onto the altar. Then he turned and led Ilse down the stone steps toward the manor house. She would never come back. In the village square, an old woman stood motionless near the dried-up fountain. 16 brides, she whispered. No one answered her. They never did. Part 2. The room with the locked mirror. The manor rose like a wound in the mist. Its stone walls were older than the village itself, weathered with veins of black moss and stained glass windows depicting saints no one recognized. Some were headless, some bore symbols that had long ceased being holy. The hem of her wedding dress dragged over the gravel path, soaking up dew like a wick. When they reached the entrance, the iron doors opened on their own. He simply turned and ascended the staircase, each step creaking not with wood, but with memory. No servants, no candlelight, just air that smelled of wax and something faintly. Ilse followed Ulrich in silence. Your room is prepared, Ulrich said. He didn't touch her, didn't offer a hand. Ilse climbed behind him. The chamber waited at the end of the west wing, a high vaulted room with velvet drapes nailed shut, a single bed carved with strange runes, a silver basin filled with rose water, and, on the far wall, a tall mirror. But the mirror was covered sealed tight beneath a heavy cloth, bound by 3 black leather straps. Locks clicked in place at each corner. It was not meant to be opened. No one will disturb you, Ulrich said flatly. The door locks from the outside. For your protection. He stepped out, leaving behind the echo of his boots. The key turned. She was alone. Ilse didn't cry. She explored instead. The fireplace had no ash, though it glowed faintly. The books on the shelf were written in alphabets that shifted when you stared too long. The window, when peeked through the curtain slit, didn't show the village, only woods, endless and too still. And the mirror, she couldn't look away from it. Even hidden, she could feel its poor like. It knew she was there, a kind of whisper, not words, but breath. And with each syllable came the same voice he had heard for years, one that spoke not to his ears, but to his bones. As night deepened, she sat at the edge of the bed, hands in her lap. Somewhere below, a bell rang once, then twice. Then a third time she blinked, and saw blood, just a drop on the basin's silver rim. No wound, no pain, no source. It hadn't been there before. Downstairs, in the Manor's Code library, Ulrich sat before a single candle. He wasn't reading. He was listening. From the walls a sound began to rise. 16 were not enough. It breathed. She must open the mirror. Part 3. Her name was written beneath the paint. The second night came colder. Ilse awoke to find the basin empty. The rose water was gone, and in its place, a single hair-long, black, curled in the shape of a question. She hadn't moved. Still shut. Still sealed. She checked the locks on the door. No footsteps had passed the threshold, but someone or something had been in the room. Every seam, every board. She knocked on the stone behind the shelves. Nothing hollow, nothing gave. She spent the morning inspecting the walls, until she noticed the paint. Just above the bed's headboard, the wallpaper had bubbled like skin blistered over something beneath. She reached out and peeled back the thinnest layer. Beneath it, scratched deep into the plaster, 1673, and beneath that, please do not let it see your eye. The moment she finished reading it, a gust blew through the locked window. Every candle went out at once. The room fell into an unnatural darkness, not black but red-veined like light behind a bleeding eyelid. And somewhere, the sound of metal sliding against metal. The mirror's locks. Ilse turned. The covering on the mirror trembled. One leather strap had loosened, unbuckled by a force she hadn't seen. She froze. A faint whisper echoed from behind it. A whisper that didn't speak words, just a melody, like a lullaby hummed from beneath water. She backed away slowly, clutching her skirts. Her heel struck something soft. She looked down. A doll, hand-stitched, ancient, but unmistakably sewn from bridal cloth. Stuffed, not with cotton, but hair. Below, in the crypt room beneath the library, Ulrich burned a letter. Its wax seal bore the sigil of the family twin snakes around a blindfolded eye. He read aloud before the fire consumed it. The mirror must see her despair. Only then will the binding hold. She must break before the hour bleeds out. Behind him, a painting fell from the wall, and behind that painting 16 noches carved in the stone. That night, Ilsa didn't sleep. She sat in the far corner of the room, as far from the mirror as she could. But no matter how she turned, no matter how she closed her eyes, she could still feel it watching, and the second strap slipped free. Part 4. The journal beneath floorboards by dawn. Ilsa was too tired to cry. The mirror stood with 2 straps undone, the cloth fluttering gently as if breathing. No wind entered the room. The windows were sealed, but still it moved. She didn't dare look at it. Instead, she focused on the floor. The board was darker than the rest, and when she pressed her weight upon it, it gave slightly. The doll she'd found had been sitting crooked, its foot pointing toward a warped plank near the hearth. She fetched the metal prong from the fireplace. With quiet hands and clenched teeth, she pried the board open. Beneath it lay a book, leather-bound, warped from years of moisture. Its pages stuck together with something sticky, long-dried, not ink, something thicker. She opened to the first legible entry. I was promised protection, not prison, he said. My pain would keep them alive, but I know now they feed it. The writing was jagged, desperate, cemented mid. Some trailed off in shaking lines that curved like roots, each entry more broken than the last. A drop of something red-black flaked into her lap. It wasn't dry. The mirror, it shows you the bride you'll become, not the woman you are. She screamed so long last night. I bled from my ears. Ilsa turned the page and began to fray. The final entry had no words, just a sketch. A face. Her face. Eyes wide, mouth sewn shut. She dropped the journal, backed away until she hit the mirror. It trembled against her spine. The third and final strap stretched tight. She didn't move, didn't breathe, and then a knock. At the door, firm, deliberate, she ran to it. Who's there? No answer. Just a slip of parchment slid beneath the door. She picked it up, written in faded gold ink. It must know your fear. Just one more and she'll see what she is. Or it will take your flesh instead. In the crypt, Ulrich whispered to the root-veined wall. Behind him, the mirror in the great hall cracked, not shattered, but split straight down the center. And from that fracture, a soft voice leaked. Not Ilsa's, but I. Part 5. The room that shouldn't exist. Ilsa ran. She didn't pack, she didn't think. She flung the warped floorboard aside, dropped the journal, and charged toward the door. Her fists pounded the wood. Let me out. No answer. The handle wouldn't budge. Not even a rattle. It was like grabbing stone. She turned to the windows, yanked back the nailed drapes. Through the glass she saw, not the forest, not the village, but herself, standing alone in the bridal chamber, looking out from inside. The reflection blinked. She did not. The air grew heavier. She grabbed the silver basin and hurled it against the wall. It struck the mirror, one final strap remaining. The sound it made wasn't shattering, it was a scream. A real one. Muffled, distant. From the other side, began to search the walls for seams, for panels, any secret exit, anything not yet tried. That's when she found it. She turned back to the door. A narrow slit in the corner behind the wardrobe, just wide enough for a child to crawl through. She hesitated, then knelt and pushed her way in. The tunnel was low, rough, descending, carved into stone, smelling not of earth but of lilies and ash. She crawled for what felt like hours. Her dress tore, her knees bled. But eventually, the crawl space opened into a room with no doors, and 16 empty beds. It's perfectly made, each with a single rose laid upon the pillow. On the far wall, a painting, a wedding portrait, same room, same roses, same angle. But the bride in the painting had no face, just a blur. Ilsa stepped closer. The paint began to move, bleeding down the canvas. The bride's form twisted, and her own face began to emerge in its place. She screamed, and the floor cracked beneath her feet. Back in the manor above, Ulrich stood before the altar in the private chapel. He wore his wedding coat again, black, crimson trim. In his hands a bone needle and a length of red thread. He began to sew something invisible in the air, his fingers moving with memory, not sight. One more night, he whispered. One more name in the mirror. The fire beside him whispered back. Through at last. And she will come through at last. Part 6. The bride in the wall. Ilsa fell. The floor beneath the portrait gave way like rotted skin, and she plunged through blackness, arms flailing, lungs empty. She struck cold stone with a thud, air knocked from her chest, gown twisted around her legs. She lay still, listening. No sound, no movement, no escape, until a breath, not hers. It came from behind the wall, slow-labored, like someone who had not spoken in years, was trying to remember how. A line of candlelight flickered along a crack in the stone. Then, a whisper. "You're not the first." Ilsa pressed a hand to the wall. It was warm. "Who's there?" she called. The voice rasped, weak, but unmistakably female. "My name was Corinne," before they took it. The wall cracked wider. A single eye peered through, a pale milk-colored iris, rimmed in red. "You found the room. The others did not. That's how I know. You might still leave." Ilsa knelt, hands trembling. "What is this place? What do they want from me?" A pause. Then, "The mirror doesn't show you. It remembers you. It's not a reflection, it's a promise. Every bride that came here left a piece of herself in it. Our screams, our blood, our names, and when the mirror is full, she will come." Ilsa's voice cracked. "Who?" But Corinne didn't answer. Instead, she slid something through the crack-folded cloth, crusted with dried red. "A bridal veil. Put this on. When it calls you, wear it." "Not yet." A grinding noise echoed above them, stone shifting. The chamber was closing again. Corinne's final words, "Don't open the mirror. It opens you," and then she was gone. Back in the manor, Auric placed 16 candles in a perfect circle. Each bore the name of a bride carved into wax. He lit the 17th, but left its name blank. That night Ilsa woke again in the bridal chamber. No bruise, no blood, just the veil in her hands. No memory of crawling back. And now the mirror stood uncovered. Its glass gleamed, untouched, pristine. But her reflection, it smiled. She did not. It smiled. She did not. Part 7. The Mirror Bride. Ilsa didn't blink. She couldn't. The thing in the mirror had her face but to perfect. To still, like porcelain stretched over something that remembered how to be human. But wasn't it? Tilted its head. Slowly, deliberately, then mouthed her name. Ilsa. No sound. Just lips forming it. And in the silence, the candles in her room lit themselves one by one. 17 flames. One for each bride. One for her. It shouldn't have fit. But when she placed it over her head, it slid perfectly into place. Like a crown made for a girl already chosen. She clutched the veil Corinne had given her. It smelled of dust and dried salt. The mirror pulsed. Not like light. Like breath. And then, it opened. Not shattered. Not cracked. It simply dissolved glass, melting into liquid shadow, and beyond it, a corridor long, endless, lit by lanterns that held no fire. The corridor pulsed with a heartbeat she could feel in her feet. She stepped through. The air behind the glass was colder, wetter, like she'd entered the mouth of a living thing. Identical. Brides' names carved in bone. Above each I saw Corinne and Alice Marta. On each side of the hallway were doors. She passed them one by one, until she reached the door marked simply. It was not locked. Inside was a ballroom, candlelit, empty, grand beyond comprehension. And at the center, beneath a canopy of dried flowers and black lace, stood the first bride. She wore no veil, no gown. Her skin was parchment white, her eyes to pits of dried ash, but she smiled. "You came," she said. "You always do." Ilsa stepped forward. "Who are you?" The bride extended her hand. Her fingers were bones wrapped in faded lace. "I am what's left after the ceremony ends, and I am what waits to begin again." The room shifted. The walls fell away. Brides from centuries past, some transparent as smoke, others still weeping with open mouths. And suddenly Ilsa stood among these 16 others, pale, waiting, veiled. They surrounded her, not with malice but hunger. "You're the last," whispered the first bride. "And with you, we are whole." The veil tightened on Ilsa's throat like a noose. She couldn't scream. The glass behind her closed. Above in the chapel, Auric felt a weight lift from his chest for the first time in decades. He breathed deep, then looked into the mirror before him, and saw nothing, not his reflection, only the first bride. And she was smiling. Part 8. The vow of the unnamed. Ilsa stood before the first bride. The chamber was silent, holding its breath. From the throne of shattered mirrors, the first bride raised a single finger, and a scroll unfurled from thin air parchment older than bone, stained with vows that no one remembered writing. "Speak your name," the first bride commanded, "or give it to me." Ilsa's voice cracked. "What happens if I do?" The answer came not in words, but in vision. The mirror behind the throne shimmered and showed her life. Her mother's hands, the goat path songs, the muddy spring river where she once danced barefoot, and then gone, replaced by brides with sewn lips and hollow eyes, walking through centuries as shadows veiled and forgotten. "If I give you my name," Ilsa said slowly, "do I become you?" The first bride blinked. "Once no, you become all of us." She raised her hand. The mirror hummed. The floor began to glow with echoes the old language of sacrifice. Lines of blood and bridal vows intertwined. One step forward, and Ilsa's name would be carved into history. Unescapable. Permanent. But another voice echoed from the corridor. Saw familiar Ilsa, it was Corinne. She stood outside the ring, face uncovered, eyes clear. But she was not among the brides anymore. You don't have to surrender. You just have to break the reflection. Ilsa turned to the mirror again. Her face in it smiled, but she did not. And in that moment she understood. The mirror wasn't showing her future. It was building it one vow at a time. She looked back at the first bride. I won't give you my name. The mirror darkened. The floor cracked. Then you will give me your soul, the bride hissed. And with a wave of her hand, the chamber erupted, veils tearing, voices rising, the mirror cracking like a heart under too much truth. Ilsa ran. The veil flew from her shoulders. The bride scattered like ashes, and the mirror screamed. Part 10. Her name stays in the glass. The mirror exploded in silence. No shards, no flying glass. Disintegration like frost vanishing under morning light. A wave of cold swept through the chamber, and then stillness. All the names disappeared. One by one, etched letters faded from the surface. Isolde, Corinne, Leora, Melengon. They didn't speak, but their eyes said everything. Thank you, goodbye, and don't follow. Released. Only one name remained, Ilsa, not carved. On the wall above it, the family sigil had been burned out, melted into nothing. No legacy. No bride reflected. She dropped the shard from her hand. Blood ran down her wrist like a slow red thread, unraveling a fate she hadn't asked for. Behind her, the bride stood freer, now veils removed. Faces they began to dissolve, one by one, into gentle ash. No pain, no fire, just release, peace, even Corinne, especially her. But Ilsa remained hollow. The air thickened again. Only this time it wasn't suffocating, it was empty. Ulrich was gone. No footsteps, no cloak, only a trail of wax leading to the crumbled altar. And yet, the manor did not collapse. It waited. Ilsa found her way back to the village by foot. They didn't believe her. They never do. But the bells stopped ringing after that night, and the path to the manor grew over with vines and silence. The bridal chamber sealed itself shut. But in certain windows on red winter nights, when the fog hangs low, children say they can see a silhouette. Not trapped, watching, waiting. In a quiet room in a distant part of England, an old mirror sits in a museum. It has no markings, no frame, no story, but sometimes a girl's face flickers in the reflection. And she's not looking at herself. She's looking at you. If you made it this far, you're already part of the story. Some say the mirror still exists. Some say the ritual continues in places forgotten by time and protected by silence. But whether you believe or not, your name, too, was just whispered back. If this tale sent chills down your spine, honor the echoes. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and tell us in the comments, what would you do if you were the 17th bride? More forgotten truths and forbidden histories await. Until next time, keep your candles lit.